Hey everybody, it's Big Mike here, and today we're going to review the Staco or Staco S-T-A-C-O SHA300. Says it has a 6.3 to 1 gear ratio. So let me tell you a little bit about this reel. Hopefully you can see on the camera here. We have the screen is busted on this one. Now what got me really interested in these reels is for crappie season, you want to have a way to know how much line you have out. So I thought a line counter reel seemed like a good idea. Well, apparently I searched for the wrong thing at the wrong time, or the right thing at the wrong time, whatever. And Facebook was kind enough to tell me that Wish has this reel for $1. So of course, $1, let me go check that out. Of course, you have to install the Wish app. Go figure. And when I get through with all that fun stuff, find out that the reel is actually like $44 or $45. I think it was free shipping. I could be wrong on that. But in any case, I was going to be buying at least a few of these, and I didn't want to put out $40, $45 for a reel that I had no idea anything about. Well, as luck would have it, I was talking to a guy from crappie.com, no less, and he said, oh, well, there was this guy that had some reels on there about a month ago. And if you've ever been on crappie.com, you'll know that any of the good deals don't stay. So I was surprised to find out that there were, I don't remember if it's 12 or 14 reels. A few of them have screen problems, but I could get them all for $100 shipped. Well, I jumped on that. I figure, they're less than $10 a reel, even if they are hot garbage, at least for jigging for crappie or whatever. I've got it. Plus, most of them came with some, I think it's Power Pro braid, some kind of braid on there. So, that saves me some money right off the bat. So, I was really interested. Happy when I got them. Now, the reason, I'm the third owner of these. The second owner, the reason he didn't like it is because these measure in meters instead of feet or yards. It does do them in increments of 1 decimal. So, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. So I figure 0.3 is pretty close to a foot. Works for me. Meter, yard, pretty close. Whole 9 yards. Besides, I kind of figure that as long as you know how much the line counter says, then you just match it again and you're good. So I was getting ready for crappie season and thought I would get these. The problem is I looked on YouTube. I couldn't find any reviews on these. Can't find an owner's manual on them. If any of you happen to have an owner's manual, let me know. So I really don't know how they operate, short of the yellow button turns it on and off. They apparently go through batteries a decent amount. And now, if this isn't a selling point, I don't know what is. Ball bearing symbol, 16 plus 1. 16 plus 1. And a low profile baitcaster for $45. Everyone that believes that, raise their hand. Okay, put your hands down, you're wrong. Okay, so let's tear this bad boy apart. I'll skip through some of the more boring parts, but let's go ahead and start here. And we just take that off. We take the nut keeper that keeps the handle on off. Grab a little nut tool here, pull that off. This one's kind of dirty, dusty, I should say, not dirty. I've taken a couple of them apart. Actually, I took 4 of them apart to get one back together. Neat how that works. Okay, so you get the pressure washer, whatever you want to call it here, that goes between the handle and the drag. The star, I should say. I'm going to get some terms interchanged. Work with me here. Okay, so get those out of there, get those off on one spot. Okay, so it does click when you turn the star drag, so that's kind of nice, and this is the clicker mechanism. So what you have on here, you've got the clicker, the little piece that does the clicking by hitting this little guy here. You got a regular washer on the bottom, and then you've got 2 spring washers on the top. And of course, that's what helps, put the pressure against the drag washers. Okay, and then we've got the tension knob cap. Now this is interesting. I've only really worked on Shimano Corrado B series. Yeah, I'm old. And it was weird for me to see this in here. So on the Shimano's, it's got kind of a smaller piece. And this one won't come out. Let's see. No, it won't. But it's more than just a simple piece in there. There's it's got kind of like a little very thin, maybe rubber piece, very, very thin, almost paper thin, and then another little piece of metal, which is more like the size that you would get in the Shimano Corrado. Okay. This screw right here, so you've got several screws. This one actually goes all the way through to the other side. Now to take off this is a right-handed reel, so to take off the left side plate, there's a screw here, and then that one with the odd-shaped head, the cut goes all the way through it. It's got a flat head on top of it. Okay, so let's pull these off. I'll warn you right off the front, these aren't even made out of Chinesium. This is plastic. Don't over-tighten your screws, because, you know what happens when you do that. In case anyone's wondering, this little screwdriver is part of a Pittsburgh set from not Home Depot, Harbor Freight. 32 piece, has some tweezers that are long gone. Triangle bit, a little spanner bit, and, Torx and different sizes. It's basically jeweler sized, mostly, which makes these good for working on reels. Let's see, so I guess I've got all my bits out. Those are the same. And that one's way too big. Oh, we'll go with this one. There it goes. Didn't want to break free at first. And the angle doesn't help things at all. I'm just turning it to get the pawl out of the way, because it kind of adds to the angle here. Now, if I remember correctly, there's only 2 screws other than the one that holds the handle nut retainer in place that have like machine screws, machine type threads on them. The rest are more, I'm going to call them like wood screws. That's not right, but the aggressive threads. And these are more of machine screw type threads. Okay, so we take those 2 off, and we pull out this one screw here. That allows the side plate to come off. Okay. Now it does have little brass bushings, or whatever you want to call them, that act as nuts to hold the plate on. And this is where the battery is held. The battery is held by these 2 the cover is held by these 2 little bitty screws here. And that's too big. Where's my itty bitty one? That's it. I mean, these things are tiny. A little more than a coarse grain of pepper. If you've done a coarse grind. Let's get some garbage out of the way. And off comes the cover, and inside is a CR2032 battery. These are Sony brand. Got them off of Amazon. Chances they're Sony is, yeah, you get the idea. Okay, Now, to get the spool out, you need to take these two screws off. It does have these little, not sure if you can see them, wings, for lack of a better word, molded in. And that kind of keeps the battery in place so that it doesn't move around. Okay, so now we take the side piece off here. So let's get that out. And pull out the spool. So the spool is similar to the Shimano Corrado in that it's got a pressed-on bearing, and then, or not necessarily pressed on, but the bearing rides here, and then it's got a pin that's pressed in that keeps everything in check, and also works for the winding. Okay. You probably shouldn't have done this on camera. It is overspooled anyway. I'm sure. Yeah. I'm gonna have to get this off to put it back together, but nobody wants to watch that. And it's backlashed really nicely. Okay, so that is basically all there is to see here. That's the guts. That's the screw that I told you over here that comes out the other side. We'll go ahead and pull that out. And we'll take off the right side plate. Now, I'm making this video not only to tear down the reel, but to also help anybody that's got one of these and has taken it apart and went, oh my goodness, now I'm kind of hosed here. Okay. So we got our side plate, got these two springs here. So I'll go ahead and put all my screws in the side plate. Interestingly enough, both of the side plates have an R written in them. So, whatever that means. Okay, so we'll start here with the gear, the main drive gear. Okay, so in this stack, on the bottom, we have this washer. Well, not washer. It does come apart. So you got this. Okay, so this side goes down against the gear. So the gear goes back on. You get this piece first. This little rubber washer is attached to it. It's the first piece on. Okay. Then you have the gear. And then there is one carbon fiber washer. Right here. And I don't know if the nickel looking piece comes out or not. It does. So there you go. So there's your drive gear. This little guy. Carbon fiber drag washer. Then you have this washer. It has a bend or a crown on it. The crown goes not toward the gear, but away from the gear. So the crown is on, it's like this. Okay. Then you have the anti-reverse bushing that the anti-reverse bearing rides on. This is the one-way clutch. This is the +1. Has 6 little roller bearings in there, but it's considered one bearing in my book. Okay, so there you go. Then comes this ball bearing, and then you have the rest of the stack, the rest of the stack is all over here. And that again is you have this washer that goes there. Then you've got the clicker piece that goes with that for the star drag, and then the two compression washers there. So that's the entire stack as it goes on. Now, the anti-reverse bearing. It looks kind of like an acorn nut in that it's got a bottom side. Both sides have blue, so don't let that drive your thought here. But if you look here, you'll see, so you've got a flat, this is all flat here, and then it kind of crowns up a little bit. So notice that the edge is flat, but then it has a little crowned up piece here. The crowned up piece goes down. So it goes on the shaft like this, so that the crown piece is on the bottom. Okay? And just kind of sits like, sits like this. Okay. Get that stack out of the way. Now, let's talk about our parts in here. As you can see, it's been well lubed. I don't know if that's from the factory or from a previous owner. So this piece here, little plastic piece that comes off, that's actually a really nice part of it, and I should have mentioned that while it was closed up. What happens is when you push the spool release button, this flips up. So you can pull line out, let line out, however, and then you push this, and it doesn't snap back like it should right now because it relies on the side piece being on. But when you push that, it snaps everything back up and re-engages the spool. So that's really nice. If you want to, one hand, you can just thumb it, and then when you're ready, pop. So there you go. Okay. Now, as far as the order that these come out, good luck to everyone on this. So this is going to be your pinion gear. And this matches up, mates up against these two. That pin that comes through, so it mates up against that, and that's what actually drives the spool to turn. Okay, get that off. Now this screw right here, this little bitty one, that actually holds this piece on. That's the only part that actually holds it on when the side plates are off. And this just is I'll call it a beauty piece. It ain't that pretty. That just kind of goes over the line guide on the reel and goes on both sides. So take that off and we'll put that screw with it. And there we go. Okay. So this piece, when you move the thumb bar, this spring is what kind of locks it in place. And also what pushes it back up when you've got all the tension on it from the side plate being on. So we take this little guy off here. So your spring, it goes in, there's a little hole right here. And then there's a hole in this plastic piece. I'll show you that it goes through. So that's how it sits in there. So we take this little screw off. Where'd it go? There it is. And then there's the metal piece on top that comes off. Okay, so we got that. And the screw goes in the center hole of it, right here. It goes in that hole. This hole actually goes over here, and this little hole fits over a little pin in the plastic. You can't see it molded into the plastic, I should say, right here. Okay. Now, this is all held down effectively by these two screws, because this grayish piece goes over a pin on this black piece that is actually the part that has the spring in it. So we take these two off. I mentioned that my dog loves me when I'm doing videos. Hi, Lola Bell. so there's those 2 screws. Now, it's really good to keep these screws where they need, with the part that they come from. These 3 screws all appear to be the same. They have a little larger head than most of the, medium-sized head. These are the largest head, and the one that I removed is the smallest head that held in that one piece over here. So you can see. That's not a good sound. Well, I'm down 1 screw somewhere. No biggie. So there's those 2. And then here's the largest. So you see the different head sizes. And also you can see they're different lengths. So these 2, again, these have more of a machine. And those came from holding on this side plate. Okay. So once it's done, we take off the piece that, the little switch here that flips back. And we'll take the pressure off of here. We should let this. Oh, that won't come out until the other piece does. So we need to take these 2 screws out next. You really only have to take one of them out and then loosen the other, because what it does is it gets this little guy out of the way. But we're going to take them out because we're on a hunt for those 16 bearings. So these 2, again, have a very large head. Okay, so now that that's done, we can take this shaft out. That's the drive shaft. Appears to be brass. The plastic gears here are for the level wind, so don't really worry about that. We do have a bearing under there. Yay, there's another bearing. We're just going to be to 16 in no time at all, aren't we? Okay, so this comes off. The silver piece here does come out the center, and this shows you how this piece kind of sits over here as well. Okay, so there's no bearing in here. This is just a plastic part of the housing, part of the frame. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this piece back into place, because we already know that there are no bearings to come out. Okay. And then, like I said, this is under spring tension, so you kind of have to wiggle and jiggle a little bit. And you can get it back on if that spring comes out, trust me. I know. Now, if we pull this little metal piece out, that may help us get this back on. Yeah, okay. So it's kind of indexed here. You've got the, it's kind of like a shark fin on it with a very abrupt cut on the back. And it goes on like this. This is the top of the reel. Okay. Now you're into the spring pressure that we talked about. Let me grab this metal piece that's got 4 holes in it. The 2 big ones go on the 2 plastic pins sticking up. So you want to tighten these down, not too tight, because this whole ring does move back and forth. It's like when you, there we go. So again, you don't want to tighten it too tight. Okay, so that's in place. So no bearings there. We have one bearing here. Let's go ahead and take the pawl off. Or not necessarily take it off, but loosen it so that the level wind runs free. There is no spring. I was expecting one to come out. It did not. So now that this can move back and forth, should move back and forth, or should come out. So let's take off this C-clip right here. And this little retainer piece here is what keeps the level wind in place. Always be prepared when you take these off because they will come flying off. Okay, so that allows us to pull out the level wind mechanism. Okay, lo and behold, we have found another bearing right here. This little guy right here is a little skinny bearing, but he's a bearing. Go ahead and shove him back in because we found one bearing. Yay us. Okay, and then you have to kind of rotate it around. There is this one washer right here that will come out as you try to reseat everything. Still don't have quite enough room. Let's see here. Okay, there. That slid into place. So we can take this C-clip again. And say your prayers. It's a great thing about a reel that's been lubed. All the parts that you don't want to stick to you do, and the ones that you need to stick to you, stick for just a second and then drop. Now that washer underneath is what's making this such a bear to get back on, because you have to get just the C-clip and not the washer. Okay, so that's back into place. And we can go ahead and slap the pawl back on, or the pawl cover, or whatever that is. Make sure it moves back and forth okay. Yeah. Wrong bit. This one's still the wrong bit, but it's a better wrong bit than the other one. Okay, make sure it still moves back and forth. If it moves, it makes the whole shaft move, which is exactly what you want. Okay, now these two screws right here, these are going to take off the electronics. So I guess part of me thinks it's nice to be able to take them off, but it doesn't do any good because you can't get replacement parts anyway. And then there's 2 more screws to let you get in there, but we're searching for ball bearings and there aren't going to be any in there. I'm sure there is a good use for sausage fingers, but putting reels back together and taking them apart is not a good use for sausage fingers. And that one's getting cross-threaded. Let me just get the other one in there. Then we can back it out, thread it correctly. Again, like I said, the entire frame is made out of, again, not even industrial strength Chinesium. This is just flimsy plastic. But again, this was meant to be a crappie reel for me. Couldn't tell you what the line capacity is on it because, again, it doesn't come with a manual. But I do believe that the intended purpose was not to be long lighting for trophy cats or going out for sharks. So plastic's okay as long as you remember not to over tighten your screws and not to go searching for a beast of a fish with these. Again, my purpose is going to be crappie, bluegill, little panfish, so it doesn't bother me in the least. Now, I have taken the handle apart, and I guess I'll do it again just for giggles here. Has a nice little screw slot right here. So pull this guy off. And it is actually a nice little power handle. Hard EVA foam. This is not smooth enough, in my opinion, to have a ball bearing in it. You tell me. I don't believe there to be one in there. Even if there is, it's going to be one. It's a pressed on shaft, so I can't get it off anyway. I may have found another. So we have one. We have the level 1, 2, we have 3. We have 4, which is going to be on this shaft here. So that's number 4. We have 1 on the shaft here, 5. Oh, I'm wrong. There's the 6th. So we do have 6 ball bearings that I can find. 6 of them. 3 of them are the shaft. So the shaft rides against this. There's one on the shaft. And then there's one in the right side plate under all these screws there. And that also is what the shaft rides on. The shaft of the spool, I should say. So the spool rides on 3 different bearings. So that's pretty decent. The big thing here is, remember, do not over tighten screws. You will not be happy with yourself afterwards. It's not a great piece of equipment. I don't know what the buttons do for the electronics. The yellow one, orange one, whatever, turns it on and off. But then when you push the green one, it says a couple of other things, and I really don't get what it means. So there you go. I believe in one of the settings you can then push the orange button again and it will zero it out if you're interested in that. Again, I would love to have an owner's manual on one of these just to get an idea of what each piece is supposed to do. I'm just going to check these one last time. I don't want to torque them, but I do want them tight enough that they're going to work. So let's see. Yeah, so that still does everything fine. So now we're going to start putting parts back in. That's why it's not going to go on. And then this will get your gears back in. And figure out where those, there they are. Again, these have the very big head screws. And that's going to hold the main drive shaft, whatever you want to call it, in place. We got this piece back in. We're going to go ahead and put on the little switch that allows you to. See, there we go. Push back in. Again, this really relies on the pressure of the housing being in place. So it pops up like that. Push it, and then a little help from the spring. It pushes it forward, and that sets everything back up. Okay, now we've got pinion gear. There we go. When you put the pinion gear back in, make sure that you have the big cross here down, and again, that's what latches onto the pin on the spool and makes it crank. So we'll put this in here like so. The gear does come out. So if it comes out, you just got that, there's a little section in the middle of this that's narrower. Just put it in like so. And then we'll slap on our springs. Okay. We talked about this piece and how it has one screw that holds it in, and that's this screw right here, or this tab goes through that screw. The other screws are going to come in when the reel is put back together. Okay, so we talked about this metal piece and how it holds everything in here. So we're going to go ahead and put that back on. So a little tab goes past the edge here. And we just need to jimmy it onto. There we go. Get on that little plastic pin that sticks up. And let's see. Okay, so that's that for that side. I'm left-handed, so I need to drive the screw with my left hand. My right hand just doesn't have the dexterity that my left does. Of course, sometimes I don't think my left hand has the dexterity that I think my left hand has. Okay, just looking around for extra pieces. I do need to put in the one screw for this, which should be this screw here. Easier said than done. Wrong hole. There we go. I got it back in place. Let's go ahead and grab the spool. Okay, let's go ahead and slide the spool in. Make sure that we got the line in correctly. We can put this piece back in. Yeah, well, this piece is on the other side. What else is new? Okay, and start off with the two larger screws. One on each side. And these you want to make sure are tight, but again, don't forget that you're playing with plastic here. If you strip these out, these are going to be a problem, because that's what holds the spool tension on the left-hand side of the reel. So if you, even though you have the spool adjustment, tension adjustment on the right side of the reel, if those give away, it doesn't really matter. Okay, this also has a piece, like a little piece of silicone right here, that helps you index it here to where the wire goes in. And of course, once you take it off the first time, it's a moot point, because you really need to kind of go behind it and seal it in again, because you've broken that seal. Now let's get the itty bitty screws. I'm not going to bother replacing the battery on this one, because the screen is non-functional anyway. Grab these little guys. Part of me wants to put a little bit of grease on those to hold them in place on my finger when I'm trying to move them around, but it's too close to the electronics for my taste, so I'll just fight the old-fashioned way. Again, just kind of snug these up. I don't know that it's going to keep water out of there. It doesn't look like there was a waterproof gasket or anything in there to keep things dry in there, but then again, this side of the reel should get a whole lot of water in it anyway. Okay, that's that. We can go ahead and slap this side plate on. That. I probably should have a very long and very small screwdriver so that I don't have to torque those over to the side as much as I do, but again, it's not that expensive a reel, so oh well. So I'm just spinning to get the level wind out of the way. So I put this other screw back in. In case it's not obvious by now, this is a family-friendly channel, because there are many words I wish I could have used to describe putting this reel back together, and even taking it apart. And then when you find out that there's all those thousands upon thousands of ball bearings that they say. Okay, so amazingly enough, the only piece I lost here was this little guy came out, so we'll just shove him right back in place. Okay. Now we're going to go back through all of the stack that goes on the main gear, or the main shaft here. So our first piece is this little guy. And let's see, so that guy is that gear is used so that when you wind in, that it will actually reset the spool, re-engage the spool. Get that back up. Okay. Let's get our spring back on here. Okay. So we got that on, and I think that the washer here actually is part of the drag on this side of it. We'll put that in, and again we've got the carbon fiber drag washer in there, and we have this little crown washer. Again, the crowned part goes up so that it's I think that's convex. Yeah, concave is in, convex up top, goes in place. Again, this is going to be our little bushing or race or whatever for the bearing, for the one-way clutch. Again, the crowned part on this goes down. So you've got the crown part from the washer, from this washer here, going up against the crown part of this one-way bearing. It looks like, again, it kind of looks like an acorn nut, but clearly it's not. Okay, so once we get this far, this is where I like to go ahead and put this side plate back on. And notice I kept the big long screw out of it because it makes it a lot harder to get this in place. And I'm just double checking to make sure that all the screws I'm supposed to have are in there, and they are. So we slide this little guy back on. And he's got to just kind of jimmy and shimmy around that one-way clutch, because it has grooves, for lack of a better word, inside this housing that it rides up against. So you know how to kind of look like a nut on the outside. There are matching pieces inside there that kind of hold it in place. So now that we've got that in place, we come back and we put on our bearing. It just slides into place. Then we've got this washer goes on top of that bearing. And then here's the clicker for the star drag. That goes on, and all the bits are pointed up, so you see it's the flat part that doesn't have any parts sticking up goes against that bottom washer that we just put on. And then here are those two kind of compression washers that push back against the star drag to push everything together so that the drag works as it's supposed to. Okay, so we've got all of that in place. Just want to make sure everything fits, pushes down okay. There are those two springs, so remember that's going to push back a little bit. And this is actually a good time to put in this long screw. And that in and of itself will hold it enough that you can get all the other screws in. So let's go ahead and work on all our other screws. I apologize if the video goes in and out of focus a lot. One of the downsides of autofocus. Good when you need it, but when you're doing videos like this where everything's up pretty close, that can be a little annoying. Now, if you did want to take out this ball bearing, it's got one of those clips in here, and you'd need like a pair of tweezers to get in and get behind this little spring clip. Trust me when I tell you I know better than to pull this out, because this is one of those that does love to go flying across the room. Unfortunately, it's not going to come out easily right now, but it's just one of those hexagon shaped that just kind of goes 6 sides, and then that one side, it has a space in it so that they can go together, and then it pinches back out. So, let's see, you get this. There are 2 screws that I did not take out of the reel, and those are actually the pieces that hold the thumb bar button to this little bar right here. You can see them right here. So there's a little metal bar that goes both sides, and then it attaches to that, and that's just what that rides on. And of course, all the stuff came off on this side. And we slap the star drag back on. We'll put the washer on. Remember the spring-loaded or the springy washer. The ear flaps go down against the star drag. Slap the handle on. Slap that on there. Now that you got the handle on, you can tighten up the drag, because otherwise it wants to move around. If you do want to tighten up the star drag without the handle on, you can just wedge your finger in between the level line and one of the sides, and that'll keep it from moving. So that the shaft from turning, so that you can actually put the star drag on and tighten it up some. Again, there's that audible click I talked about earlier. Okay, so we'll pop this on. Tighten it up. Just kind of, you don't want to put any pressure on it. Just snug it up is basically what we're doing. You put this little washer on, and that little gear, that little grooves in it, keep that nut from backing off. And then this little screw keeps that little locking piece from being able to spin and allowing the nut to come off. So close, so close, so close. There we go. Okay. Talked about putting that down and push that button. See? Once it's all back together, it works real well. So there you have it. Take it apart, put it back together. We've got one screw left to put back in, and that is here on the bottom. That just holds the right side cover on a little better, because, again, did I mention it's made out of plastic? Didn't want to be a broken record on that or anything. When you know it, put it back together, and there's a fuzz there. Okay. So there you are. Again, this is the Staco Take Your Pitco SHA300. Again, plastic frame. It lies about the ball bearings. We got 6+1. This isn't as tight as I would like it to be. Why is... Tighten up this one. Tighten up this one, and that may just be a... yeah, it's just an imperfection. It's not really damaging anything, and you don't want to tighten these. You don't want to over tighten them because you will strip them out. And again, for what I paid for them, not a bad price. Would I ever pay $45 a piece for them? No. It's just that simple. Thanks for watching. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share the video with your friends if you know anybody that's thinking about one of these reels. If there's any other videos you'd like, owner's manual for these things, I would love a copy. Thank you. Until next time, I'll see you out on the water.